And we are live. Welcome back to Beyond the ToolBelt, episode 223. Today we have another special guest, my friend Robert Posey. Stay tuned. We will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. TC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
TC Backer.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 223. And we are currently at our Greenville location, South Carolina. We'll be heading over to the Bluffton location shortly, but we've been down here all week. My friend Robert came up, did some training with our team up here. We got some of our team in the building today that will probably rotate in and out of this special episode. We're making it special because we're holding the pen and we can write the script any way we damn well feel like writing the script today and any other day of our lives. So, Robert, how's it going, brother?
It's been a really, really cool 2 days. I can say that much.
Mm-hmm.
It's been neat.
Yeah, it has been cool. And, you know, we all appreciate the influence, the knowledge, the inspiration.
Thank you.
More importantly, the technical side of, you know, sales and things like that, and what you can bring and offer, you know, bring to the table here for the last couple of days has been not just inspiring to me, but educational and probably life-changing for some of those that got to sit in and witness some of your expertise and the mindset that you bring to the table has definitely been inspiring to me. And I saw some light bulbs go off in the past couple of days, not just with this team, but I saw John taking notes. I saw, you know, Glenn and I were having little side conversations like we need to implement this like right away. But maybe let's talk a little bit about, you know, where you gain some of that knowledge, because I feel like you're probably like a self-educated person like myself.
I'll remember some good stories.
Yeah, let's
Some
hear.
super good stories. Let's see. So a famous one is the red Ferrari story. So the red Ferrari story, 16 years old, like if we ever meet, like I got a hand tattoo, and like I don't know, I'm a little rough around the edges. I can clean up. but I think I've always been that way. And at 16 years old, I was standing on a curb smoking a cigarette, and this red Ferrari pulls up. And he didn't pull up for any reason other than the fact that I was loitering next to a valet stand. So he gets out of the car, and the way he walked around the back side of the vehicle, and he was bringing his keys, or excuse me, they had already taken the car, but he was walking like he was coming directly at me. And anytime somebody's that close in proximity to me, I've always felt like, oh, this is awkward enough. I should say something.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the guy, hey, man, what do I have to do to get a car like that? And he laughed, like had a little under his breath chuckle. He wasn't making fun of me or anything, but he laughed. And his response was, you got to get out of here. And I was like, what? So I grew up on Hilton Head, South Carolina, which is a retirement community, 113 golf courses inside of a 13-mile radius. Like, there was a lot of money where I grew up. And for a guy with a lot of money to tell me I needed to leave a place where there was a lot of money was like counterintuitive. So I asked him, I was like, what do you mean? And he's like everybody here is retired. They're here to hold their money long enough to die and to have enough left over to leave to their kids. And that made a lot of sense. So I asked, what do I do? He said, move to a big city. And then he said, figure out how to get your hand in on as many transactions as possible. And then he walked off. That was the whole conversation. It was like I got 3 questions and 3 answers. So when I turned, I guess I would have been 18, maybe 19. I know I was 18. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where I have family. No idea what to do. The day I arrived in Atlanta, I ended up getting a front desk job, $7.50 an hour at Gold's Gym. Just luck would have it, 2 very, very influential people. One was Bob Langley, who was the president of a company called Results Through Motivation. Despite what the name sounds like, it actually was the largest franchise of fast food restaurants in the country. They had 1,500 locations. The gym was just a hobby of his. Like, he was retired, basically. He was 33 at the time. Or no, wow. He was 43 at the time, and he was basically retired. So he opened a gym. And the issue was I couldn't stand still behind the front desk. So I'm sitting alone at the gym, middle of the day. The morning rush is gone. The evening rush hasn't come yet. And I'm spinning in an office chair, thinking I'm alone, and I hear this whistle. This dude, Bob, who's a pretty big guy, pretty threatening, like I was intimidated, whistles, and he's like, Posey, come back here. And I'm like, you got me. So I go back there, and it turns out him, the GM, and the assistant manager were in the back having a meeting, and they had been in there all day. I just didn't know they were there. So they showed me footage of me spinning in this office chair. And he gave me a choice. He said, I either fire you because you can't do the job I hired you, or I promote you to sales. And we figure out how to use your energy. And I was like, please don't fire me. So that afternoon, the assistant manager walked me through the presentation binder. And Bob told him the next walk-in is Posey's. Let him sell it.
Wow.
I remember literally my hand shaking. That first walk-in, I was like, I should have just let him fire me. So the presentation, you got to walk around the gym, and I'm supposed to ask questions. I didn't know all that. So I'm like, there's the locker rooms. That's the free weights. Over here's cardio. Over here's group fitness. So you want to be a member? Like, that was the whole pitch. It was probably over in 6 minutes. And I struggled for a little while. I struggled probably for 3 months. We had 8 locations, and I was dead last for those 3 months. Second mentor pops in. There's a guy named Ori Bengal, who's a ludicrous human being. He went full in on art. They just sent his art, the most recent capsule that's headed to the moon. They're taking his art to the moon. Like, he's a wild dude. At the time, he was a marketing guy. He did print media. And I asked him about, hey, I want to get a flyer made. He starts asking me all these questions. I'm like, I don't know, dude. So I start answering the best I could. And where did the ideas come from and why and where am I going to put the flyer and who's going to use it? So he invites me to this seminar. And he tells me, don't listen to any of the marketing, pay only attention to the sales stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay. I listened to all the marketing and none of the sales stuff, but I was hooked. So I asked him to take me under his wing.
Mhm.
He gave me an audio book. He said, listen to it 3 times and implement everything you learned without question. And I did. I said, done. Like, I'll do that. I went from dead last out of 8 locations to number 1 out of all 8 locations inside of those 30 days.
Wow.
So recap, random guy,
Mhm.
Ferrari, went all in on his advice, moved myself to a big city. Figure I need transactions, fall into sales accidentally and realize I get a percentage of all of my transactions. And then somebody taught me how to use audiobooks, and implementation.
Yeah.
The key word was implementation. And by implementing everything I learned, I took the number 1 spot. That was the start of sales.
Yeah, that's crazy. So a couple of things went through my head when you were talking. This is a great story, by the way. I've listened to a lot of other people's stories, and I think some of the most successful people that I'm aware of, I don't personally know them, but have had the same similar story as you. Patrick Bet Davis started out, I think, as a salesperson at Gold's Gym. Another one that came to mind was Bedros Keuilian. Now he stuck with the fitness thing. I think he's got his own line of products and stuff out. I actually take the wellness shot, so maybe we'll get a sponsorship from him since I gave him a plug. I think Andy Priscilla. I think same thing. Him and his brother. But I know there's more. I can't think of their names right now. That's what's so cool about this story, like where a lot of people's journey started in a sales position, but not just a sales position anywhere. It was in fitness, right? So that's pretty cool. But I'm also curious about like what 3 audiobooks or tapes did he tell you to listen to?
1 audiobook 3 times.
Oh, 1 audiobook.
He gave me 1.
Okay.
And said 3 times. So it was Chet Holmes. And for the life of me, I can't find it. But at least it was titled on the thumb drive,
Mhm.
How to Become a Sales Superstar.
Okay.
Now, Chet Holmes has the ultimate sales machine, which is very easy to find.
Okay.
So I recommend anyone start there. But I can't find the original one, How to Become a Sales Superstar. So if anybody knows of it, I would love to track that back down.
Yeah,
it was huge.
What was probably the 3 biggest things that you took away from listening to our audiobook that you still implement today? Or let's start back then. What did you implement? What did you get from it? What did you implement from it back then? And is there anything that you're still implementing today?
Well, so
relevant.
Yes. So there's a few things from the book itself. There's a couple of things, but from that time period,
Mm-hmm.
What happened was I started chain reaction. Well, if 1 book can get me number 1, then 2 books, 3 books, and then it ended up being a decade. Mm-hmm. And still to this day, I still read and listen to these books.
No doubt.
So one of the big ones, Chet Holmes was a karate champion among that and business consultant. He said, you never feared the guy who practiced 12 punches 100 times. You feared the guy who practiced 1 punch 1,000 times. Mm. So lock in and do it over and over and over, whatever the punch is. Mm. So that was a big takeaway. Probably the most influential book to me was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm. Robert Cialdini and Persuasion, and I was studying everything I could do, NLP. I was manipulation. I studied cults. I studied the human behavior, the reason that people buy things. I studied all of that sort of stuff. And I would say I look at things now as time travel. I steal that directly from Matthew Danskin.
Okay.
Matthew Danskin talks about time travel.
Mhm.
I stole that from him because it makes so much sense. If I can take all of this cumulative knowledge of all these other people and I can just trust the process, do the work, put the implementation in, if I take those little tidbits, it saves me a decade of error
Mhm.
just to test it out. So I turned myself into a bit of a case study and I would try all these different things. Um, Another good point: 2 ears, one mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak. We hear people say this all the time in sales,
Mhm.
but as from my observation, when I meet most salespeople, they've all heard it, but they don't listen to it.
Mhm.
So that relentless implementation, if I say 2 ears, one mouth, listen twice as much as you speak, I mean it. Shut up.
Yeah.
Stop talking. Another good one, another great one from that time period. If they say it, it's true. If I say it, I have to defend it. So the implication of that is if I'm sitting here and I ask Ty or tell him, hey, your roof is damaged.
Mhm.
I said it. Now I have to defend it. As opposed to, have you noticed that your roof is damaged? It's the same thing. You say, yeah, I did.
Mhm.
So you said you noticed. Now you have to defend that.
Mhm.
So if we get into some sort of an objection handling battle later, we've already discussed it. So with those two, asking questions. That's why my title is Chief Question Asker, because I know if I shut up and only ask questions, I can get you to say the thing that I wanted to say to you. And then I don't have to defend it.
Mhm.
Now we're having a sales conversation from the same side of the table as opposed to sitting across
Yeah.
from each other.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's so good. So now I know that about you. So I know when you're trying to sell me on something.
Yeah, well, I do it consistently and all the time. So we'll see. Good luck.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, right? No, that's great. And that's the thing. It's like nobody holds your hand but at least they led you to, the water and you decided to drink it and you did with it what you wanted to do. And I think that's probably the difference between many things. And we were having a funny earlier about consistency. And we're consistently late on the show for
Yeah.
for a reason, because that's what people came to realize that that's the time that they start. But not just that, but consistency of doing the podcast and how much of a pain in the ass it might be at times. But you trying to spin this into um, how it relates to the topic that we're talking about right now is it sounds like you were very consistent on your journey of self-awareness, but not just you but other people and their behaviors and stuff like that, is because I heard manipulation. There's a fine line between, what do they say, sales and manipulation.
I guess persuasion and
Yeah,
manipulation, or
yeah,
it's all to
some-
me it's all very, very similar.
Yeah.
It's the ethics behind it.
100%.
I think if I'm doing it for service to self,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe I'm manipulating you.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of has the more negative, both similar, persuasion, manipulation. If I'm doing it for you,
Mm-hmm.
right, that's a line that you have to draw for yourself as an individual. A sales rep has to draw, your team, your company has to draw that line ethically,
Mm-hmm.
because our words are powerful, super, super, super powerful. That's where my journey got really crazy, is when I had that realization.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. I'll share that, but I don't want to hijack what you were saying.
No, that's okay. That's okay, because my job here is to actually pull those things out of you. So continue.
Okay, fair enough. So I went to the seminar. There was marketers, these brilliant marketers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these guys, one of them did $1 million in sales in a day, and I was like baffled.
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard of it. I mean, I'm 18 years old. I'd never heard of such a thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Always been entrepreneurial. Never had a clue what that actually meant or what the possibility could be. So the marketers looked like rock stars to me, because they don't have to own the company. they get to get paid the percentage
Mhm.
off of somebody else's business. And if I could control the lead flow, then I could control the business. And I thought that, man, that's pretty powerful. I avoided sales, even though I was in sales. I started to make a shift focusing on marketing, business. I taught myself how to build websites. I did everything I could to not be a sales guy. And then enter another mentor, a gentleman by the name of Gulliver Giles, Australian guy, refers to himself as the sales warlord. Um, Not that he's not a brute force warlord type bro. He just uses war and his analogies, his acronyms, his metaphors. Um, he taught me that sales was about love and about respect, and I had never heard it put that way. So at the time, sales to me was still transactional. It's me trying to beat you. We're playing a game of poker, and I'm trying to make sure I have the upper hand.
Yeah.
When he taught me that sales was about love and respect, it's loving the person across from me enough to hold them accountable for the things that they say they want or need, and having enough respect for myself and for the person that neither one of us are allowed to lie to each other.
Mhm.
So, in order for us to do that, it requires very clear expectations. It requires me to be an expert communicator because most people aren't. And if I can lead as an expert communicator, if I can figure out the who, what, when, why, how much, where, all the interrogative questions, if we can check the interrogative question boxes,
Mhm.
I think we can get to the same side of the table. So now when we're playing poker, we're trying to beat the house, we're trying to beat the game, we're not trying to beat each other. And it changes the dynamic of the relationship. I fell in love with sales when I realized that through my voice and the ability to have clear communication,
Mhm.
that I actually could create an impact not only for a customer. It's hard in roofing and some of the contracting businesses to create a correlation to impact.
Mhm.
I mean, sure, it's the largest investment is the home,
Mhm.
protecting all of the assets inside the home. You know, family pictures, generational trinkets, furniture, you know, hand me downs and that sort of stuff. You could put it attach an impact to protecting those sorts of things, but then it starts to become about the team. It starts to become about leverage, and that's when I learned the first time I hired a sales rep and I made a percentage of someone else's money. That's when it clicked for me.
Mhm.
Like, oh wow, I really have the ability to make an impact, not just through me, but what if I put these principles into my team? Now the impact as a professional, as a leader, I get to spread it here in my team, you know, 5, 10, 12, 50 people, however big your team is. If I'm guiding that team with those principles and I'm able to give them, let them download just a little bit of that love and respect, and they can put it out into the community, we actually have the ability to change the world.
Mhm.
And I don't think I was ever, I don't think I was ever the like, you know, find world peace or bring like, you know, feed the poor or any of that. Like, those things are important to me. I knew I wanted to impact the world, but those ones didn't resonate too much. But when I realized that through my voice I could have a real impact,
Mhm.
then I started to find purpose. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's some of the story coming out.
Yeah. No, no, and that's good. There's a lot of good things that you touched on there where it wasn't going to battle with a potential client. It was more so, okay, we're on the same team here. And
Yeah.
that's a great mindset to have, because I think if you're truly there to create value and have a positive impact on somebody's life, it would be no different than how you would treat anyone else. Just because they need a service, you're trying to pinpoint what the problem is. Why would we want to feel like we have to hide everything when it's actually us against the machine?
Yeah.
Right. So I can see how that could have switched your mindset or the way that you were approaching this. And it's like you talk about all the time. The one thing that I pick up have picked up from you is knowing which lever, or not even knowing, but you know that there's a lever. If we can find that lever to pull, in this instance, it was a mindset shift on like how I'm going to approach this. It's not me against them. We're in this together. I'm going to respect them. This is their most valuable possession, as we're in the home service industry, and share the love with them. Like, hey, this is what we have. This is what we can do for you if you can't afford it. We have, whether it be offering financing, a better product that might suit their budget, or things like that. And that's something. And I think that's why we resonated so quickly, because of having of that same mindset, because our purpose is to serve not just our teams, but the impact that we can have as individuals. But the most powerful point that you brought up is now that I got a team, now I got 12, 15, 20, 25,000 people that are working, that are of the same belief, because not only do I have to try to get my voice out there, but now I got 12 other people that I've trained that believe the same thing that I believe. And that's where that compounding impact comes into play. And I think that's what's cool about, speaking, right? I think some of the most powerful people in the, like presidents, past, future presidents, one of their strongest pieces is being able to have a speech or speaking, right?
Yeah.
And it's reading, writing, and speaking obviously are important, but I don't think a lot of people understand how important being able to speak or articulate a vision to people, how powerful that is, along with writing, right? And I threw reading in there because I can't hone my skill, my crafts, right? And these are all skills. So if you're not very good at these things, you can actually get better at them, because I have, but it's something that I have to do for myself. It's a skill. So I have to work on it. So there's books that I have to read, because reading, exercises the mind. It expands my vocabulary. In turn, I can speak better. The other second fold to that is that I'll be able to write better, right? But then most importantly, especially on this topic, is that I can articulate a vision, a mission, onto those, cast that onto those that are under our leadership, to make that bigger impact. And that's the part that I really want to dial in on, is because of the impact, right? Like roofing, the home service industry has become our vehicle to impact. Yes, we want to serve our community in the best way, shape, form that we can, and sometimes that means 21 turkey feeding people.
Did I read that you guys broke the Guinness Book of World Record?
We have,
for the most turkeys cooked at a single time.
4 years in a row. This year I think will be our 5th annual.
I had no idea about that, and you bringing that up reminded me of it.
You know what I mean. But that's the impact, and that's the thing. Like we couldn't serve that amount of people. I personally couldn't do that without a team that I've been able to cast that vision onto, to help us do that. And what's cool about that is I always talk about finding replacements. Right. Not because I'm ready, more so on a micro level.
He's going to fire everybody at any second.
Yeah. No, like finding my replacement. And like Glenn has really stepped up. Tam has really stepped up when it comes to the 21 turkey salute. Like they created a committee. I didn't do that. They did that because they're jacked over it. They're like, okay, we fed 600 people 2 years ago. This year we're going to feed, 900 people. And now this year, I'm sure we're going to be shooting for like 1,200 people.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like once we cast, but because I was able to articulate that message, I'm like, hey, this is what we're going to do.
Did you
and kind of manipulated them into thinking it was a good idea to do this?
Yeah.
What I mean?
Well, it is a good idea. Like, period. Argue the fact that feeding people who can't feed themselves is a bad idea. That's a great idea. So having the buy-in, like that's my curious question for you is, like being around the TC Backer team for the last couple of days, there's a lot of buy-in especially from your core guys. Like your people are bought in. I'm curious, in your story, have you just always been a natural at creating that?
I think I mean, I think people are born with natural abilities to lead.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like looking back now that you say that, I've always been in some type of leadership role.
Sure.
And the craziest thing about that is, growing up as a kid, the people that I hung out with, I had my in school friends and I had my out of school friends. And my out of school friends were always older, but it was like I was kind of like the leader of that. I've always had that gift of, convincing you that it's a good idea. And I think I learned early on that it's never a good idea until you think it's a good idea. So I got to find that way to come at you, that angle, and sometimes I'm saying the same thing 5 times, but I say it 5 times differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've learned at an early age how to manipulate. My parents were split up, still married, still business partners. So I think at an early age, it was like, that's where, for me, as looking back, that somebody might have said that was probably a negative, but how I've been able to leverage that ability and hone that craft of, and I talk about this all the time. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, I've had a pretty hard past, self-induced, my fault kind of history. And I worked so hard at that. Okay. I've worked so hard at manipulating people to get things that I want, whether it was drinking or money or something like that. And I talk about this a lot in front of these groups. I speak a lot in front of these groups. And it's like, imagine if you took half that energy that we put into staying up for 5 days straight and finding the next drug dealer that's awake at 3 o'clock in the morning and all these horrible, nasty things that I put myself through. If I took half that negative energy and applied it to something positive, imagine what I could do with that.
Yeah.
So I'd say about 16, 17 years ago, that light bulb went off for me.
Was it an incident?
Probably sitting in jail. How did I do this again? And doing the foxhole prayers, God, if you get me out of this jackpot, I'll never do it again, kind of thing like that. But I had a lot of supportive people. There was people that saw the good in me where I couldn't see the good in me. It's kind of giving me goosebumps right now. So I had some support, even though I should have been wrote off, but they were still like my sister would come by and give me some pep talks, and of course my mom, she was my biggest cheerleader. She enabled me so much, literally it almost killed me. So she almost loved me to death, my mom. And so when she had passed away, I think this year February was 9 years. That's really when the light, that there was like a second light bulb, like the 2.0 version of myself really kicked in. You know what I mean? For me, it was like, okay, I have really big shoes to fill. And my mom impacted so many people at so many levels in her local community over in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, Franklin County, right outside Hagerstown, Maryland. She had impacted and influenced and had taken care of so many different people, like whether it was creating the DARE program at my elementary school. Wow. She was the neighborhood block watch mom. She ran the Santa's breakfasts, the summer jubilees. That's wild. Yeah, I mean, I don't even all that, and worked full time
and took care of you
and took care of me, which is definitely. And I got an older brother and sister, and my dad, mind you. So she had her hands full.
Yeah.
With us, and I forget where I was going with it. And I had big shoes to fill.
Leadership.
So that's how I grieved over my mom, was that I let it manifest in a positive way in my life. Yeah. I could have took it the other way and fell back into the bottle and used that as an excuse of why I'm a piece of crap today. Well, if your mom would die, we hear that all the time. People have the luxury of excuses, right? We all have those luxuries. But I allowed it to manifest in a way where it was like, okay, now it's my turn to grab this torch.
Yeah.
She passed the torch to me. And how can I let her legacy live on? What better way? So we kind of went, like a group of us, Jana included, went on a mission, because 6 months later to the day, Jana's mom passed away. So both our moms died within 6 month period of time. So then that kicked it even more into high gear. Of course there was some, grieving that took place.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't suggest grieving the way that I did at that time to anybody. But of course, because of my past, my threshold for pain is much greater than most people. which is unfortunately an unfair advantage. I always looked at it like an unfair advantage over most people,
Yeah.
especially in a leadership position or entrepreneurial or especially multiple businesses, right? Juggling.
What does that mean? Like, we're talking about the unfair advantage.
Yeah.
Does that mean you just don't have quit in you, or how does that manifest?
Yeah. So it had manifested in many couple of ways at a couple of different levels, right? So my pain and grieving over death was basically I ignored it and dove into work and other people.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to think about it. And that's why I said I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, because there are times that situations may happen that my emotions are probably a little more magnified than it should have been due to that circumstance. I think
Yeah.
it still leaks out. And I don't know if people understand that about themselves, right? Like if you don't deal with something, it could have been 10 years ago that I didn't
Yeah.
deal with my mom's death. Okay. So if somebody else dies that really wasn't that close to me and I'm just a blubbering mess, that's me because I didn't deal with that then.
Yeah.
That's my body, my mind, my soul, the fiber of my being, and that's how it's dealing with that, because I didn't have that moment back then. I didn't allow myself. I stayed focused. If anything, I was entirely too focused. Like I went to work when the hearse came to our house because my mom passed. She had lived with us. That's how Jana and my mom became best friends. My mom lived with us for 4 years, dying in our home, and then she passed away in her house. The day that the hearse came was her. Thank God it was her best friend. He came, picked her up. I went straight to work. I left the house. I told everybody to get out of my house. Enough being friendly, because there was people there that I didn't really care for, but I was being patient.
Yeah.
As patient as I possibly could be, because I understand people don't feel things the way that I do, and I have to be sensitive to that, right? Which I struggle with that sometimes, but I do try to put myself in their shoes, because people don't feel, and again, I'm talking about that threshold for pain, right? Because there's no pain that greater than the pains that I've put myself through. And I'm telling you, I put myself in some really bad situations, and a lot of other people too along the way. There was a lot of wreckage there. But anyhow, I got laser dialed in on about 9 years ago. That's when I started to read a lot more. I felt like there was a lot of time I needed to catch up for too. Because at that time, I think I had 3, 4, 5 years sober at that time, and really was dialed in on just that. How can I not pick up a drink one day at a time? Which was a lot of self-improvement, and I learned a lot and still do on a daily basis. And I still live that way, one day at a time. Like I don't keep one foot in yesterday and one foot in tomorrow and piss all over today. Yeah. We have today. What are we going to do today? Just like a little situation came up earlier today.
Being a great steward of your moment.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Stay in right now. What can we do? Even if something's going on right now, like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And in those moments, especially with adversity, right? Or little
we have adversity today?
Speed bumps. I call them speed bumps. I don't call them roadblocks. I call them speed bumps, because when you get over that thing, even today, I'll even be a smart ass. When I go over a speed bump, I smash the gas, because I want to get over that thing and I use it metaphorically, like everybody in the car. Like you may have heard me say this before. It's going to be rough. Hold on for a second. But, the longer I procrastinate to get over that speed bump, the longer it's going to take for me to get over that speed bump.
Yeah.
Right. So just mash the gas and get through it. It's going to be bumpy. But what happens is it catapults you.
Yeah.
It shoots you. Bam. That's where that what do they call that? Not that a deflex, but or whatever.
Ricochet?
Ricochet. That's where that ricochet.
Bounce back.
Yeah. That's where that boom. And it's like, we got over it. We're done. We're good. Let's move on to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you're saying right now that resonate in a super, super big way. One foot in front of the other for me has always been a thing. Like I've literally had internal discussions where I'm trying to figure out, am I broken? Like, it used to be stressful things weren't stressful. I realized because my mom was also an enabler and love her to death. I hope she gets to see this. And she knows she was. I had to cut her off. I literally had to tell my mom, "Hey, we're done here. You will let me be homeless before you ever help me again." And we had that discussion. But I think because she helped me so much, she allowed me some space. There was some good that came from it. She allowed me some space to deal with stuff that was hard, and where I almost was trained not to feel stress. I think, I don't know. I've studied a bunch of psychology, but the hardest person to analyze has always been me. But because of that, when things get hard, there's never, ever, ever been I guess we should think about shutting the company down. I guess we're not going to hit the goal. It's never been a thought. It's the goal always stays the same. If I decide we're going after it, we're going to go after it. And if there is a speed bump, well, there's a saying. This is one of my favorite quotes. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
So if I've got a big burly elephant, a BHAG, a big hairy audacious goal, that's my elephant. How am I going to eat it? One bite at a time, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 day at a time. Be the best steward of your moment. Nick Peterson is a more recent mentor of mine. Sorry, Nick Lucas. Nick Lucas is a more recent mentor of mine. Nick taught me to be a steward of my moment, because the past is gone. The future hasn't happened. The only thing that matters is literally what's in front of my eyes and ears right this second. So what does it do for me to think about bankruptcy or quitting, or Miss Jones' window wasn't delivered on time, or whatever it may be? It doesn't matter. How can I be a steward to Miss Jones right now? Well, Miss Jones didn't get her window on time. I guess what we need to do is we need to talk to Miss Jones. Let's go talk to Miss Jones. That's the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's wild. So, all right. So when you're leading these goals, you're a natural leader.
Yeah.
And
I like to think so. I don't want to consider myself a self-proclaimed leader here or anything.
You seem like a natural, but I also know you've got 16 years leading your teams here, and then ever how many years prior to that leading other teams?
So I do believe that people are born with certain qualities, but there's many qualities that you need to work on to become a leader. And I think empathy, understanding, and you've been saying it a lot, like seek to understand rather than to be understood. I think that's huge. I think before, and I've been guilty of jumping, to reactions and handling situations very poorly. But again, that I look at that too as experience, right? How I made that individual feel. How did it make me feel after I responded badly?
You're super good though. So today, the flyers, we got these flyers back, super flimsy. They knock on. We're not using these.
Yeah.
And your reaction was, okay, what do we do?
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
Solve the problem.
Yeah. Move on.
But you didn't make anybody feel bad about it. You didn't dwell on it, not even for a split second.
No.
I've noticed you do that a couple of times since we've been here.
Yeah.
It's that's an admirable trait.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I had to learn, it's easy to lead during good times. That's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
That's a cakewalk. Okay. When the shit's really hitting the fan, that's where true leadership should shine. You have a decision to make. Do I show my ass and my weaknesses, or do I remain calm, right, and try to handle the situation to the best of my ability?
Sure.
Right. And again, through experience, there's the Ricky Bobby story that we don't need to talk about, but because I've talked about it. So any of y'all listening out there that have heard the Ricky Bobby story.
Well, I guess I won't ask what the Ricky Bobby story is.
I mean, I could tell you what the Ricky.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Short bullet point.
Bullet point was that I handled the situation very poorly.
Okay.
Due to ego a little bit and a little bit of control. There was a gas cap missing on a vehicle. and I saw it every morning. And, I had made a couple comments like, hey, why don't you just stop if you can't afford a gas cap at Advanced AutoZone, because I felt like they should replace it. Okay.
Yeah.
Red flag number one right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Little control there. Like, you lost it, you replace it. Right.
Sure.
Accidents happen. Just,
Mhm.
Here's $10 to go get one.
Yeah.
Right?
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Too.
Could have handled it that way. Then, go to the gas station, go to the counter. I'm sure they got a box of gas caps back there.
Yeah.
Think outside the box
$3.
a little bit. You know what I mean? They just act like you lost your gas cap there. Or, hey, do you have a Ford gas cap back? Whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't handle it. Chose not to. About a week went by. We got a real bad rainstorm. And it's a big box truck with a gutter on up top of it. Whether you know it or not, vehicles have gutters that channels that water
And it
away.
channeled it directly into the gas.
Right into the tank. And mind you, we just spent probably $15,000 on a new engine.
Oh no!
For this box truck. And I heard Ricky Bobby. We're using fictitious names to protect the innocent here.
I picked up on that.
And I heard him running his mouth about how the truck was a piece of shit. Oh, it's a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. So, being the very excitable person that I am, my passion shows the shine.
There's that vocabulary you're working on.
Yeah.
Very excitable person.
Yeah.
Go on.
So my passion reared its ugly head, and he must have saw it in my face because he started to run. So I ran after him, and
Well, you were excited.
I was very, very excited.
Okay.
My passion was gleaming, and so much that he must have saw it. So he went running, and he jumped in the truck, locked the doors, and I'm trying to rip the door off the side of this truck, and I hear Kim screaming, "Bob, Bob, Bob! Ty's gonna kill Ricky Bobby!" And mind you, this was in the morning, so everyone's there watching me show my ass.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, oh my. So Bob calms me down. There's some rumblings of how I reacted from some of my co-leadership.
And this is with TC Backer.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, of course, I go back in the office. I'm like, dude, that really sucked, because the difference between even several years ago, I knew right away when I said something wrong. For years prior to that, I felt like I enjoyed hating people.
Yeah.
Okay. I felt like it gave me a dopamine hit, because I will hate you better than anyone will ever hate you. Like, I felt like it gave me some kind of control, right? And it meant something when I hated you. And that meant whatever that meant in my twisted mind back then. Okay. So I worked on that. And again, that's things I'm self-aware of. Like, I don't like how this make me feel. I don't like how I just made you feel, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I've worked on that. Now, does it veer its ugly head? It's been a minute, but this was one of those moments where they were falling further and, apart. So it really gave me like a really bad emotional hangover. And I hate apologizing. And that's another thing too. It's like, I don't try not to put myself in those situations where I have to own amends. Right.
Sure.
And because I don't live the lifestyle that I live today to feel awkward around people. Like, I didn't get as healthy, work on trying to be as healthy as I am today to feel uncomfortable around people. And if there's an instance or a situation, well, I have a choice today not to be around people that I choose not to be around today. And I used to think that I had to.
Yeah.
That's something else. It's probably a whole nother topic there. But anyhow, right away, I knew it. Now, that instance, that was probably a 7-minute show for everybody that I had displayed.
You were not the best steward of your moment.
No, I was not. Went in, sat down. Some of my co-leadership must have been saying things, and that's a separate issue there that I had to deal with. But anyhow,
sure.
So a couple of them actually confronted me, came into my office and was like, "Hey, you handled yourself pretty poorly today." But that's the type of environment that we've created so they can, hold me. I was like, I know. I got to call Ricky Bobby up. And, but can someone get a gas cap for that truck before I do strangle somebody? Anyhow, long story short, because of experience and handling myself in a very poor way and displaying a horrible human being, let alone trying to lead people, right? That's not the atmosphere that I'm trying to create. That's not the atmosphere that I want to be around today. I choose not to. But because of those things and me being self-aware of what my words said, the impact that it has on other people, that was another one of those moments of, we all heard it, words can cut worse than a knife.
Yeah. I've heard them as bullets as well.
Yeah.
Once they fire out of that gun, you can't take it back.
No way. No,
it's done.
It's
done. There's consequences now.
100%. 100%. And it's few people that you can actually make an amends to that will sincerely forgive you and get over that.
It takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
It takes a ton of trust when you're leadership. I put my career, my life into your hands. And then for that to happen, there is no going back. There's zero going back. So while you were doing that, I was thinking of another quote that I don't remember where I learned this one from, but change is only possible on the precipice of destruction. Change is only possible on the precipice of destruction. So here's a question for you. If you hadn't have been empathetic, inwardly empathetic, if you hadn't have had a team that was willing to confront you, and I would dare even say the courage for you to actually change, where do you think you'd be today?
If I wouldn't have made those changes, we would not be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
There's no way. I would probably be locked up. If that paradigm shift along the way wouldn't have happened, if I wouldn't have put myself through those situations to become who I am today, like that path, that journey, and we're all on a journey. There's no finish line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no finish line here. There's no graduation date to how much I can improve, there's still so much to learn. With having that mindset and continuously becoming self-aware of how my words impact and affect other people, I think that played a huge role in how we got here.
Yeah.
Where we're at today is due to a lot of self-inflicted pain, right? Most of the pain that I experience, anybody experiences, whether you know that or not, 90% of it is self-inflicted pain due to a bad decision that I made.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
Would you, how do you look at it now? Like, are you like, hell no, I will never do that again? Or are you more like, thank God that happened to me then?
I'm not going to say that it won't happen.
But I'm saying, are you grateful? Are you this happened for me or this happened to me?
No, I'm definitely a happened for me kind of person.
Yeah.
That happened for me. There's no doubt about it. I needed every single episode. I needed every single success, every single failure to be who I am today. And knowing and being self-aware enough to know that this, again, going back to this is just a journey, right? Like there's no finish date. There's no graduation date that, I need to continuously, because what got us here won't get us where we want to go. It got us here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have to somehow learn how to think much bigger, and I think also humility plays a huge part in this, and being humble enough, smart enough to know that I need to surround myself around smarter people than me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Or even just know that I can't do it all myself, and I'm my own worst critic saying, people smarter than me. Yeah. In certain areas of, that I'm not so inclined in or whatever like that, I could be, but what would that mean to other things that I should be more focused on too? Yeah, I can create a website. It might take me 3 months to get it where I want it, but just hire a website design company that can do it in 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks.
Sure.
You know what I mean? To get it where
that's
it needs
wisdom,
to be.
Ty. That's wisdom.
Yeah. Right. I'm a little wiser today than I was, and I grew up fast too.
What is that quote you keep saying? You keep saying something about not getting to the end. There's no finish line. You brought that up a couple of times.
Yeah.
So how do you look at it look at the process? So today
Mm-hmm.
you've got the speed bumps.
Mm-hmm.
When things get really, really hard,
Mm-hmm.
is the speed bump your go-to quote, or what's the thing? What's the principle you live by that's like one foot in front of the other?
You know, that's a great question, because I always look at there's two things, and you said it. I live by this is happening for me.
Yeah.
What good is going to come out of this right now? Okay.
Yeah.
I learned that from Ed Milet, who actually probably didn't learn it from him, but he galvanized that for me.
Sure.
You know, and then that, you know, I don't look at things as a roadblock, and looking back over my track record. Okay. Everything happened for me for a purpose. I may not have saw it then, and I know that today.
Yeah.
I know what we're going through right now. I may not see why yet. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Okay. They will always materialize if we work for them. But that's kind of that's another quote that I live by, is sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. It will always materialize if we work for them. And keyword we. But I know things are happening for me today, not to me. And you know, because I have to understand too, what's best for me isn't always what I think it should be. Just
Yeah.
because I want it, is it really a want, or is it a need? Is this something that we need? And with being a collaborative thinker, right? I don't think selfishly.
Yeah.
Okay. That's, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a catch-22 at times. Okay, because I'm always like,
I'd say more often
what
than not.
what can I bring? What can I bring? Not necessarily like, what am I getting out of this? What am I getting out of this? What standards? Yeah, or not even
Surely
standards.
you've got a line in the sand, right?
Of course I do. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the deal has to serve both parties to some extent.
Yeah. Well, you know, where I was just reminded of this was we were recently in a business transaction, and I'm talking to my attorney, and you know, and I'm telling her all these things we're bringing to the table of, you know, of this, with this other business. And she's like, well, what are they supposed to be doing? Like, you know, isn't it like,
Yeah.
you're purchasing this business? Like,
Sounds like a good attorney.
yeah. And she reminded me, she's like, well, wait a minute. Aren't like this, like you're doing this to make money, right? And it's like, yes. Thank you for reminding me. You know, I'm looking
It's
at the
easy
people.
to be passionate about the people in a relationship
like-
and to lose sight of that, because you're still human. And buying a business, it becomes a human endeavor, where I believe businesses and people are separate in the sense that businesses don't have problems, people have problems. A
Mhm.
business is
100%.
it's an entity,
Mhm.
but it's ran by people and therefore has problems.
Yes.
I think that likewise, businesses are phenomenal, and one of my favorite things about them is that there are people in them.
Mhm.
But it does humanize decision making, and sometimes you have to, if you do think that way,
Mhm.
if you do think about other people a lot,
Mhm.
sometimes you have to put the business cap back on and be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
stop. How does this work?
Mhm.
Does this actually benefit me? Does it actually benefit them? Does it benefit my legacy, my kids, my wife, you know, whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it went from one extreme to the other because I worked so hard on it
Yeah.
to not make this about me.
Yeah. But it's evident that you care about the team. Like, just being here with the team and
Mhm.
seeing the energy with you being here, being present, like, man, these people are rallying right
Mhm.
now. And what we say, Mo is in the building.
Yep.
Got that
Yep.
momentum.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Mo.
I don't think you could do that though if you weren't looking at what's in the best interest of these other people.
Mhm. Yeah, and so that's the silver bullet. Everyone's looking for the silver bullet for success in life.
Yeah.
And success isn't necessarily monetary money success.
Yeah.
Right. That comes with doing the next right thing. Right.
What?
Success comes from watching other people succeed. For me.
Sure. Well, and some of that is kind of like, who's the guy? Was it John Maxwell or Jim Rohn or one of the old school greats
Mhm.
said, if you want to be a billionaire, figure out how to make other people millionaires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? There's
Yeah.
that. And one of my favorites, there's a great speech called Acres of Diamonds
Mhm.
by Russell Conwell. It's like super old,
Mhm.
100-year-old speech he gave at a university. And a quote inside of that is that money is a measure of exchanged value.
Mhm.
So when you tie that quote back to how to win friends and influence people,
Mhm.
making other people feel important, using their first name, that little bitty bits of value that you're able to spread across your team. Like, it was kind of funny. We messed up one of the team members' names a couple times, and we had a couple of jabs. But I was thinking to myself in that moment, back to that book,
Mhm.
how valuable does he feel
Mhm.
when we mess up his name
Mhm.
2-3 times in a row?
Mhm.
He can't possibly feel like he's the most important person in the room. And
Yeah.
I think that, I guess where I'm trying to tie this to is that monetary, that little bit of selfish that you're allowed to have.
Mhm.
I think you can have that
Mhm.
by being outwardly valuable to other people.
Yeah.
You
No
do
doubt.
you do get to scratch that itch.
Yeah. Well, and this is how I sum that up. Um, Serving others, it can be tiring. Okay. Pastor Joel labeled as something like inspiring is tiring. It can be.
Great. He's one of those like super wordsmithy guys.
Yeah.
Inspiring is tiring.
Yeah. And this is where the selfish part comes in. Okay. You have to be selfish to a certain extent. If I'm not actually taking care of myself, okay, right, and if I pretend that I'm running around taking care of everybody else, but my health is failing, I'm overweight, I'm not exercising, I'm not eating right, I'm not sleeping, now I just become a martyr, right?
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have to take care of you all the time, I'd be able to take care of myself. You're a martyr. Okay. So there's really no excuse for not taking care of yourself. That's where the selfish part comes into play, right? I got to make sure that I'm doing things to improve the quality of my life too, and sometimes that takes money, right? And improving the quality of Jana's life, Rocket's life, Mackenzie's life, Jacob's life, so on and so forth. All the grandbabies, Joel, Quinn, Skylar, right? Like I'm here to improve the quality of their lives, my immediate family's lives too. Whether it's, hey, we put a pool in. Why? My justification is because when I come home and I see the grandchildren playing, splashing with Rocket, and he's picking them up and cannonball and all that stuff. That in itself,
Yeah.
we're not even talking about me getting in the pool yet, but where my satisfaction for success and wealth,
Yeah.
that just made me the wealthiest man in the world,
Sure.
which in turn, right, improved the quality of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because of those things, that money, right, the tip, the reward, by not being selfish in times where it's probably very easy to be selfish.
Yeah.
I've been rewarded tenfold
Yeah.
because through serving others, that's our purpose. Anything outside of that is selfishness,
Sure.
right? Like that's the silver bullet to success, is serving others. And not to sound cliche, but like that's whether it's the way that you're marketing, the way that you're conducting your business, the way that you're fathering your
Yeah.
children and stuff. Like that's where success lies, is by serving all of those people.
It's interesting. So I'm working with a sales team, and I was having a discussion, right? So we're running some Facebook ads, and they go into Messenger chat, and then the sales team picks up after the Messenger bot asks a couple qualifying questions. And one of my sales guys was responding to the messages by saying, I would love to get you information about company.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I can share so about Limitless.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to get you information about Limitless. And I had coached him the week before that he'd stop talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
So then his message he sent back to me asking for feedback was, I would love to help you give the information. Well, I asked him, what's the first word in your sentence?
Mm-hmm.
It's I.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get you information.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get you information. Now, as a sales professional, his job is to make money. His
Mhm.
job is to find members. It's to grow revenue. All of those things. So he needs to be a little bit selfish, but
Mhm.
he's serving himself still, which is everything we're talking about.
Mhm.
As people, our ego gets involved, and we're for sure naturally dispositioned towards selfishness. There's a
Mhm.
handful of traumas and different experiences. You can have somebody lean, I believe, one way or the other,
Mhm.
but you're still going to have some of that inside of there.
Mhm.
And I think you need to walk a fine line. That balance
Mhm.
is good self-respect.
Yeah.
But the coaching that I gave to him was, what if instead you said, is there anything you'd like to know about Limitless?
Mhm.
Are there any questions you have that I can answer for you? So I put you first.
Mhm.
And if people could just make sure that you comes first,
Mhm.
I think that, man, the world would be a better place.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. That's funny you say that because very rarely, and Vic and I have talked about this before, very rarely will I put I, mine
Yeah.
in any
Do you find
sentence.
yourself, do you ever like start typing and you see it
Yeah, I always
and
put
then you
we.
backwards and
Yeah.
then you delete it?
Very rarely, and unless it's by mistake, because this was something I had to work on, our team.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you catch me saying my team
Mm-hmm.
because it is our team,
Yeah.
our crew, right? Can we help you?
I see myself in emails. I do the same thing.
Yeah,
When
so-
I've got a couple bullet points.
Yeah,
I would like to make an introduction.
yeah.
The reason is I saw this
Mhm.
taking place in the meetings this week, and then I'll back up. I'm like, shit. Like I'll give myself like I'll
Mhm.
let myself have an I,
Mm-hmm.
but there's gotta be a we an
Yeah,
hour right
absolutely,
after it.
absolutely.
It has to be.
Yeah,
That's great that we like I'm glad I'm not the only one that like little voice is like
yeah.
that empathy, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's one little way that you can stop being so selfish too, right? When
Mhm.
you start include, because whether you're religious or whatever that might be, you're never by yourself first and foremost.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's how I feel. Whether it's a little mouse in my pocket or the man upstairs. Okay, you are never
Yeah.
by. It's never you that did this.
But Arnold Schwarzenegger said that too, right? That there's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. Was that Arnold?
I think quite a few people have said that. Yeah, there's never. Yes, I don't believe in that. Unless you scratched off a winning ticket. Even then,
Even still, it was all the taxpayers who
something. Yeah, it's like you had really
who raised the
you weren't
lottery.
smart enough to go and buy the ticket. But no, it takes even raising children. It takes a village.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. However you want to spin this. I mean, no, this has never been an I thing. This has always been a we thing. Even when I was in that jail cell, I was still provided for, and that's the metaphor of the story is that I've never been alone. I always had something over my head. I've always had food in my belly, even though it may have been an exuberant amount of time where I didn't have something in my belly, but somehow, some way, I was carried.
Yeah.
In those real hard and dark times of my life, I was carried. I was looking back. It's like I've always have been provided for in some
Sure.
way, shape, and going back to it may not have been what I thought I needed.
Yeah.
Right. But then I think I just used the word I twice in that short little sentence there.
Do better.
Yeah.
Do better, Ty.
But that was my point. My point is that's the way that I thought about it. What
Yeah.
I thought I needed.
But it's intentional. I think so. Grace, acceptance is a giant,
It's huge.
giant word
Yeah.
for me. Same thing. Shout out to Nick Lucas,
Mhm.
my performance consciousness coach. Acceptance.
Mhm.
I thought I had to forgive myself for a lot of things, and I guess there's a difference
Mhm.
between acceptance and forgiveness. Acceptance is I just accept that I am.
Mhm.
So if I say the word I'm not like, God, you're such a piece of work.
Mhm.
It's, oops, do better next time.
No doubt.
Or because you didn't do great, correct it, apologize. So
Mhm.
take the action. But if you can't, and if you find yourself in behaviors that you don't align with,
Mhm.
And if you are being selfish, you will find yourself in behaviors that you eventually, if it hasn't caught up with you yet, it will.
Mhm.
And then you start to find yourself into an emotional frequency of guilt and shame, and you're not doing things to serve other people.
Mhm.
It's way easier to find yourself in that guilt and that shame. Um, yeah,
No doubt.
my mind's going super deep right
Yeah.
now.
No doubt. And I feel like we could talk about this for another 50 minutes, but
Where are we at right now?
we are an hour and 10 minutes in.
Holy cow!
Why don't you leave our viewers and listeners with one golden nugget?
Oh my God, have we not already?
I know one last silver bullet here.
So because my mind is in this frame right now,
Mm-hmm.
I want to define guilt and define shame. So by having the definition, I believe it creates clarity. And with that clarity and with that awareness, you're then able to formulate an action plan. And because I personally have dealt with guilt and shame, and by God, when you face them head on, there's an immediate and significant release. And I think knowing the definitions would be super helpful. So if you've never heard this before, guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I'm a bad person. In both situations, there's a literal emotional frequency where the brain operates. There's a wave pattern where these emotions can be measured. If you've ever had a relationship where you were in love and then you start to grow apart and you start to feel disconnected, it's literally a contracted or a wave pattern that does not vibe. We don't vibe anymore. There's a vibrational frequency that no longer will allow you to be connected with that person.
Mm-hmm.
We could go so deep into this.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to keep going for a second.
Go ahead.
So I don't remember the laws or the terms, but if two equal wave patterns reach and touch each other, they will magnify by a factor of 2. But if two opposing wave factors match each other, it will cut them in half. That's contracted emotional frequency. Guilt and shame are at the very bottom of these frequencies that have been literally measured by scientists. If you have anything that you're making decisions for
Mm-hmm.
that don't align with your future purpose, your goals, or the things that you're saying outwardly, you'll find yourself in one of these two frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage you, here's your gold nugget. Go to Google and look up the emotional frequency chart. And I would suggest look at the next emotional frequencies above guilt and shame,
Mm-hmm.
and then ask yourself, what does it take for me to feel that emotion? Because there is a way. I promise there's a way for you to move to the next one. Anger, pride, right? Then it goes into happiness, joy, love, enlightenment, and those sorts of things.
I love that.
Maybe that's another episode some other time.
Yeah, no, but that was definitely a great way to end the episode. I see there's a lot of comments in there. People are loving what we did here. Unfortunately, Zach and Heath, I think we were going to try to sneak them on here, but I think they would understand why they didn't get to come on, because we were vibing very well.
Yeah, we were
for an hour and 10 minutes. So having said all that, man, we appreciate you guys for sticking around for an hour and 13 minutes. I see David Brenner still in there. I see Mike Ippy, and the list goes on. Big shout out to you guys. Don't forget to like, love, subscribe, leave a review on YouTube for us. Share this with your friends. Leave something in the comments, topic that you guys may want us to talk about at later episodes. Until then, be safe, and we love y'all. We will see you next week for episode 224 Behind the Tool Belt. Thank you guys
for having me.